Home ownership. It's, you know, kind of a rite of passage for middle-class Americans. And, well, I guess I'm considered middle class at this point. I do own a home and all the wonderful things that go along with it. And I've been working my ass off for the past couple months. Cleaning and scraping and painting. I just washed all this siding with a pressure washer, rewired the garage so that I can run the pressure washer safely, and just been doing a lot of things to kind of beautify and protect my investment. Got a new roof on there. That one's going to be done next month, I believe. And I learned a valuable lesson when installing shutters. If you're doing it when it's cold out, you need to compensate for the expansion of the plastic. It's now 70 degrees, 65 degrees right now, so I'm going to have to take that one off and readjust it, or elongate the screw hole so that I can expand. I got to scrape and paint here. I've got to fill some cracks there. That's not structural or anything. Oh yes, and I cleaned this whole wall. This was all green with moss. And this box was actually disgusting, but it's not as bad right now. Anyway, I'm gonna paint that with a brush. It's gray paint. That was all covered in thick moss. As I worked my way around, I cleaned this wall here. There's some stains. I'm gonna have to go up there and scrub those. I don't know what that is, but I've got to get it off. And today's a really, really, really nice day. I've got a guy doing my soffit vents. He's got most of this side done. Anyway, the topic du jour is... Oh, look at all that lint. See that right there? That's my hose bib, and it leaks. Because why not? You can clearly see this is possibly the original one. And they don't make them like this anymore for a lot of reasons. The new ones are very fancy and designed to prevent freeze-ups and designed to prevent cross-contamination between exterior water and potable water. Anyway, so this is the original hose bib for the house. Apparently, by the way, Home Depot employees don't know what a hose bib is because I asked them for one and they're like, I don't know what that is. I'm like, okay, great. Oh look, is that a wasp? Is he alive? Or whatever that is? I don't know. Oh, look at this guy. Poor little guy. He's gonna die. He's trapped in a spider web. Oh. Anyway. So, this leaks. And we're going to talk a little bit about old homes and water valves. And why you should just never touch them. Oh, I have the light switch down here. Okay, let's fix that. You just bought your first home, and it's not new. It's 40, 50, 60, 150 years old. And you're walking around the basement, and you see all these water valves. Ooh, pretty. And they look like this. If they look like this, don't touch them. These are leakers. They leak, because that's what old valves do. This is fixable. You don't even have to replace the valve. You can generally repack these. If it's a valve that you're using to, you know, if it's normally open and you only close it to service a fixture, you can repack the packing nuts and fix that leak once and for all. But the problem lies when the valve leaks when it's open and closed, such as the case with this one. This is the one we're going to replace today, along with the exterior hose bib.
I'm just gonna narrate this because my audio sucks. So what we're doing here is we're replacing not only the exterior hose bib, but we're also going to be replacing the interior shutoff valve. The original valves are called globe valves, and globe valves require multiple turns. Generally, a globe valve will leak when it's halfway open and halfway closed, or halfway in the middle. and they generally stop leaking when you fully close them or fully open them. After talking to one of my neighbors, I found out that the previous tenant who rented the house actually left the faucet on all the time to prevent a freeze-up. And that would explain why there was a lien against the property for some $30,000 water bill or something like that. So, anyway, so what we have to do is we now need to change out both valves. And whenever I replace a valve in my home, I always replace it with a quarter turn valve or a ball valve. They generally last much longer and they're more reliable. So, anyway, at this point, we're just going to go and get this job started. The first thing we need to do is shut off the main water supply to the house, which is over here by the water meter. And you can see this valve, it leaks when it's partially open and partially closed. See how it's dripping like that out of the stem? These valves can be repaired by disassembling them and replacing the packing seal, as well as the, actually these valves are so old, they have leather seals at the end of the stem. So if you replace both of those, it should be pretty serviceable again. But like I said, in a case like this, we want to go ahead and just replace it with a quarter turn ball valve. Now I got to drain the water system in the house, at least partially, to prevent water from getting into the pipes as I'm soldering. And that will allow for a much quicker and more efficient and tighter seal. As I'm heating up the valve to remove it. So we gotta get as much water out of the system as we can. And as I later show you in the video, I ended up opening up the whole house drain valve, which is actually located on the water main shutoff. At this point, we're going to now turn the hot water heater off, just in case we siphon too much water out of it. I don't want my elements burning up, and we'll turn it back on later. So we're going to mosey on over to the plumbing supplies that I bought. Oh, maybe not. We're going to just make sure that there's no water there. Like I said, you know, I wasn't thinking clearly at this point. I really should have just opened the drain valve at the main shutoff, and because I had some difficulties with my sweat fitting or my desoldering of the original valve. Onward and upward.
So the old hose bibs that were once used in American homes were simply just a shut-off valve. The new ones are a little bit more elaborate. This is what they call a Silcock, and what this does is it has a little breaker valve here. So when there's no pressure against this fitting, so when the water's off, when this valve is turned off, this opens up to allow water to drain out of the entire assembly. And then when water is reapplied, it closes this valve and pressurizes. But there's no valving taking place over here, which on the old valves, if you guys hear motor sounds, it's because they're doing an event at the ski slope in our neighborhood. It's like a monster truck thing, I guess. They do this every spring, apparently. Anyway, so there's no valving going on in this section here. It's all done on the end. So there's the valve right there. And that's designed to, number one, prevent water from backwashing into the household plumbing system. Let's say the water gets shut off and you've got a hose full of Ebola. And just saying, what's going to happen is if there's no water pressure, this opens up, or it just prevents water from getting back into the system. That's all it does. Okay. I hope you don't have Ebola in your water supply. That would suck. Let me get some pictures of this, and because I want to do a before and after. I'm going to have to unstaple those wires and move them up because I have to bore that hole out a little bit bigger. But this is how you cut a water line. We're not going to reuse any of this old copper. I've got all new. But look at these nice cast brass fittings. That's quality. You know, the thing about copper is it's basically proven itself. I mean, this house is 65 years old, and this is all original plumbing here. It's never really had a problem until now. All because I touched that valve. And while I could get away with just replacing both valves, that wouldn't really... This is more of... what I'm doing is more of a long-term solution, and just fixing the valve that shuts it off and replacing the actual hose bib, which is the smart thing to do. It's the right thing to do. What really drives me nuts, I don't know if you guys noticed, but when they sided the house, that's when they should have done the job. When they did the siding, but they didn't. And the siding was done about 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, the modern type Silcocks were already in use. They were pretty much standard equipment. So we've got water running through this. So I got to find the lowest point of the circuit, which is, make sure that cold water tap is on, because you want water. There we go. There we go. You can't have water in the circuit while you're soldering. That doesn't work. Now, looks to me like I'm gonna have to cut this section off, and then I'll be able to pull the whole thing right out. I don't think it's screwed into anything because I can rotate this pipe pretty easily. Yeah, it's letting me rotate it, so let's just see what the hell's going on with that.
Okay, so what I have here is a doubled up sheet of aluminum. I'm using this as a heat shield to protect my floor joist from scorching as I heat up that valve with a torch and remove it. One of the keys to sweat fitting copper is you have to have the system drained as much as possible, because you can't have any water in the pipes that you're working on. Because what's going to happen is that water will create steam, and it will help carry some of the heat away from the solder joint. So it really kills you two ways. And we'll talk a bit about that in a second here. But one of the things I want to mention, because I know I'll be asked this by a few people, why am I not using shark bite fittings or their equivalent knockoffs? Well, shark bite fittings are certainly an option. However, I prefer not to use them because they don't necessarily last as long as a standard sweat fit union. When you sweat fit pipes with solder, it will last forever, for the most part. Shark bite fittings use a rubber seal, and as we all know, rubber will degrade over time, no matter what. So, it's better, in my opinion, and I think most plumbers will agree, that sweat fitting copper is the way to go if it's an option. So I've got the valve off. You'll see that I grabbed my fire extinguisher just as a safety measure, because when you're sweat fitting copper pipes that close to wood, there's always a possibility of ignition. And there's the hot water valve that I took off, burning holes in my carpet. Thanks. Anyway, one of the things you want to make sure, and I mentioned this earlier and I'm going to mention it again, is that when you're sweat fitting copper, you want that the plumbing that you're working with and the pipes near it should be drained of as much water as possible. And the only way to do that in this case was to open up the drain valve on my shutoff valve. And I'm going to show you where that is. Some shutoff valves have this and some don't. But in this case, my main shutoff valve has one. It's a little threaded nut that you simply loosen. There it is. And when you loosen that up, it's going to start pouring water from the house, from the area after the valve, from the pipe after the valve. And the water is going to start draining down. That is now the lowest point of the system, and you can just open it right up and drain your water. So I got myself a little mounting block. You see that for the new Silcock. And there's our new shutoff valve. Look at that. She's a beauty. And you'll notice that my new shutoff valve also has one of those little drains on it. That's very important, and we'll talk about that later in the video and why you need that. And one of the things I didn't mention in this video is I did not mention the importance of following the arrows of the direction of flow on these water valves that have those drains. You want to make sure that the flow direction is correct so that the drain works as intended. Okay, let's move on. I don't know why I'm pointing to the sink, but there we go. But that shield worked magnificent.
Here's the old valve. I actually took the valve stem out and all the guts. You can see, I don't know if the camera shows this, but you've got this is actually fixable. I could replace this rubber seal with a new one and repack it. I mean, you can sometimes rebuild those. We're not gonna, because I want quarter turn valves everywhere possible, and because they're just so much more reliable. Okay, so we're gonna get some flux. We're gonna flux the valve and that. We're gonna get it hot. We're gonna put some solder on. We're gonna turn the water back on. Simple, simple. All right. So one of the things that separates the homeowners from the pros, and I am not a pro, believe me, but I've been taught this by my father and a few other people, is that when you finish soldering a joint, you take your sponge, your wet sponge, and you wipe it up so you don't have like snots like this all over the place. Oh. No fire, right? A little charring. Oh, shut up. Now, what really separates the pros from the amateurs is whether or not you are effective in creating a tight seal. And, oops, apparently I softened that. So we're going to close that up a little bit. Make sure that's closed. Okay, let's turn the water on. Let's see if it leaks. First, we need to close our drain valve. Okay, here we go. Faucets are going. Get the air out of the system. See what's going to happen. We're going to get some, I'm not going to fill that with water. I hear water running. Oh, wow. Look at that. That's all burnt water from what we were just doing. It's like residue and flux and stuff. Okay. I don't see any drips, do you? Let me shut the water off so I can pressure. The automatic light on my camera is getting confused because it's reflecting back to the camera and shutting it on and off. Let's get the air out of the lines, make sure the water heater is not. There we go. Now the next part of this project is going to be the funnest because we have to pull the old water or Silcock out and do it in a way that doesn't cause any harm. And then we got to bore a hole through the sill. See, this is why I wanted to do this valve first. That way it gives me some time to get things ready and I at least won't have the water off for any length of time. I don't see any leaks. But ironically, my old buddy, this valve, it's leaking at the packing nut. I need to fix that. So what I'm going to do is take one of my valves back to Home Depot and kind of compare it to a, see if I can't maybe repack or rebuild these valves. I mean, I bet you I could just buy a valve off the shelf and just pull this whole assembly out and replace it. That would be nice. But packing nuts are easy to fix. That's an easy fix. People have been fixing those for years. Okay, so look at that. That wasn't so bad. Now, if I hit this valve right now, it's going to be a gusher. I don't want that. So we don't want to have any gushers. Yep. Okay. So now I got to take that out, and it's now raining. So because why not? It's just weird hearing all that noise. So what I want to do is I'm going to put a mounting block here. I'm going to try to cut this out. Seriously, it's funny, you know, they sent us all, the whole neighborhood got a letter from the owners of the mountain saying, hey, by the way, we're doing this. So you're welcome to, actually they charge like $20 a head to see that show, and I can go for free right now if I want to. But unfortunately I have plumbing work to do. But anyway. Look at the siding. You know, the original siding on this house is actually in pretty good shape. It wouldn't take much to rip all this vinyl off, but I don't mind having vinyl, I guess. Whatever. Ugh. Try to get this thing out. So let's see how we did. So the pipe is at an angle, dripping out this way. So that the theory behind it is water, if it drips onto the other side of the hose bib, it's not going to drip back into the house and rot out the sill. We've got all of our solder joints done up and dressed up with a sponge. We've got our drain back valve closed. I've got the hose bib turned on to allow water to flow through. Let's see what's going to happen. Let's see. I hear water flowing. Ah, we got a leak, got a leak. The threaded fitting at the hose bib is leaking. Okay. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna have to tighten that up somehow a little more. Okay, round 2. Some of you more astute plumbers are going to know exactly what I did wrong. It's funny because I did almost all of it perfectly fine and correct, but there's one thing I didn't do right. I'll tell you what it is, because some of you novice plumbers like myself are going to do the same damn thing. So you see the Silcock hole over there? Well, guess what? That's supposed to be 1 1/8 inch in diameter. That allows for the entire fitting to be passed through. The idea is you're supposed to attach the fitting before you bring the pipe in. You're not supposed to solder directly onto that valve, because it'll melt and it'll ruin the seal. So what they want you to do is to attach your threaded fitting to the pipe first, outside the house. Seal it, get it nice and tight, and then pass it through the sill where you attach your final fittings. I attached the Silcock to the house first, attached the fitting to the pipe second, and then threaded it. That means I can't get a very good amount of torque on that fitting to get it nice and tight. And I had to chisel away some of that that sealing mortar that they put on the top of the foundation. Well, I gave it a few good torques. I took it all apart, cleaned the threads, resealed it with a good amount of liquid sealant, which I love that stuff. Works great usually. And then we're going to put it back, put the water back on. This is closed. This has been resealed. Here we go. A little bit at a time. We've got water running on the other end. We've got water flowing. I can hear it. And I think I see some water droplets forming right there. Although I could be wrong. Let's get up on it. Okay, I don't see any leakage here. You're going to get some condensation, but no, there's no leaking. Let's turn the water off on the other end. Okay, now we're going to see if it can hold pressure. Yeah, this is something I got to fix, I know. One thing at a time, guys. One thing at a time. Okay. Oh, come on, light. Stay on, you. There we go. On. Okay. So far, nothing. Now we'll check these fittings here. I would not expect this to leak at all, and it's not, so that's good. Again, there's some condensation forming. It's very humid right now. So you're going to get condensation on your pipes, but that's acceptable. Well, guys, gals, I think we fixed it. That's right. A millennial not only bought a house, but is fixing that damn house himself, because I want to prove to the older generation that some of us can do shit on our own without calling mommy and daddy. Oh, that was a little loose. Valve looks nice. Oh, nice. Now, one of the things that you want to really be careful for is you really want to keep an eye on this, because at least for the first couple of days, if this were to leak and you didn't notice it, you would have water coming back this, so because it's tilted like this, you're going to have water dripping along this pipe into your sill. This is a major structural component, and if this goes, you will have problems. Major problems structurally. So I'm going to get some new pipe hangers. I'm going to replace this busted ass hanger here. I'm going to probably add one here. Okay, this is going to be the epilogue of the video, and it's been a few hours and still no leaks. Everything seems to be holding up pretty well. I've got my strap put back in there, and I'm happy to report everything is pretty good. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the use of shark bite fittings for homeowner plumbing repairs. I'm not a professional. I'm just a homeowner, just like you, if you happen to be one. And you know, shark bite fittings are an easy fix, a quick fix, and if you are in a bind, hey, go for it. I used them on a couple of projects in the past. The last time I used them was for my refrigerator ice maker line. I have a deep hatred for saddle valves, which are commonly used to hook up ice makers. I find that, you know, they're a quick fix, but they just don't offer the water flow that an actual T-tap will give you. You know, they always leak. They leak, and I just don't like them. And so I am a big fan of putting in T-taps and then running my cold water line to a proper quarter turn valve where it goes to a nice braided stainless steel, you know, affair up to the fridge. And I like that's something that will last a very long time. But the problem with shark bite fittings, they will all eventually leak. It's just a matter of time. And if you look around, I mean, you see a lot of fittings here that are very, very old, more than double my age, and they're not leaking. They're holding up. They're discoloring. I mean, look at this copper. That's some old copper. You know, it's definitely tarnished, but it doesn't leak. The problem with the shark bite fittings is that, unlike a sweat fit joint, which uses molten solder, which is lead and aluminum and some other, or tin and lead, or nowadays they use, you know, lead-free formulas. The shark bite fitting uses 2 little rubber O-rings. That's it. There's nothing preventing water from gushing out besides 2 rubber O-rings. And if you know anything about rubber, it's that it definitely degrades over time. You know, depending on the formula of the rubber, depending on where it was made and when, it will eventually degrade. It could take 5 years, it could take 10 years. But the reality is these fittings haven't been around really all that long. So nobody really knows what their overall projected lifespan actually is in practice. So I'm just saying, you know, and I have had them fail. I lived in a condo for a number of years, and I did my own water heater replacement. And I did I used shark bite fittings. I'm like, wow, this looks like an easy option. It was expensive. I mean, shark bite fittings are very expensive. I think that T-fitting right there, or that T-tap, cost me like $10. A copper T-tap is about $1, or, you know, or $2. But the shark bite fittings will eventually leak. It's just a matter of time. Like I said, my water heater, after 4 years, I had 1 shark bite fitting fail. And if I hadn't been just diligent, and I just periodically check the water heater to make sure that it's not leaking, I wouldn't have caught on until it was far too late and caused property damage. So, I mean, that's just my personal experience. Some of you may be fine with using them, and that's okay. You know, that's just my experiences, well, that they can fail. I used one here because I was looking to get the job done fast, and I just needed it to work, and I had a lot on my plate at the time, so that's what I did. And it works, you know. I mean, I did it. You know, this is PEX. PEX is good stuff, you know. But again, just like shark bite fittings, we don't really know what the maximum lifespan is of PEX. Copper is good for 100 years. We don't know. PEX could go bad in 40. We just don't know. But I used it because it was there. It was cheap. I think it's cost me $2, whereas copper would have been like, Christ, 20 bucks. But I use quarter turn valves on all my shutoffs. I like those. They're very nice. Very smooth, very reliable. But anyway, I just wanted to mention, you know, talk a little bit about why I don't use shark bite fittings. And you know, they are an option if you wanted to give that a try, especially in easily accessed locations. I just put this brace here. That was missing. It's just flapping in the breeze. But anyway, so again, no leaks, all sweat fit, all good, all good. On my next list of things I got to do, I'm going to start working on these water valves, the ones that I'm not replacing, like this one here. Right now it's nice and dry. Oh no, it's still seeping. Nice, real nice. I'm going to actually go ahead and tear these valves apart. I'm going to repack them. I think I can replace the leather seal with a new rubber seal, and we'll be good there, at least for another couple of years. The valve isn't really in bad shape. It's just, you know, the seals are gone. And I got a few of those. I got 1, 2. I got the shutoff valve. I'm going to have those replaced. I'm going to have a plumber actually do those, because I need the street cock shut off, so I can get this one replaced. I don't trust these. These are called globe valves, by the way. I don't trust them. I mean, especially when they're this old. You know, they need to be... I just want quarter turn valves. That's all I want. At least for the main shutoff, you know. Yeah, here's a saddle valve. This has been here for about 65 years. It was put in when the furnace was installed, and they installed a humidifier, and of course that doesn't work anymore. But yeah, this saddle valve is just an accident waiting to happen. So when I get this done, I'm going to have this pipe, you know, maybe sectioned. We're going to get rid of that saddle valve. There's a hole pierced in it. That's how they put these saddle valves in. It just pierces a hole in the pipe. So I want to get rid of that and make it go away.